Coming up, the story of how a terrifying nightmare in the Caribbean inspired one of the rock era's most lovable songs about celebrating the joys of life. What happened on that beautiful moonlit night will chill you to the bone. Yet how one of the victims put the life-threatening ordeal behind him to create bottle lightning magic that will warm your soul. This amazing testament to the redemptive, healing power of music is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember standing in line to get a seat to the original Star Wars in 77, or E.T. in 82, or Batman in 89, or even Jurassic Park in 93, before you could rely on technology to get your seat, you're going to dig this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below right now. Nostalgia all the time, the stories from the legends. We also have a Patreon that you're going to want to check out as well. There you'll find more content, exclusives. That helps us to keep this a daily channel. It's time for another edition of our series, Bottle Lightning, where we celebrate a song or an album that was king for a day or many days. I love this program because it's about redemption. It's about starting from nowhere, hitting the top of the world, and then coming back down a little bit and figuring out the balance in between. It's just so many great stories on here. Dancing in the Moonlight, one of the most enlivening songs of the rock era, just pure joy. The tune induces a rush of feel-good endorphins that will instantly turn the most exasperating, stressful day into a festival of living. As the lyric goes, you can't dance and stay uptight. It's supernatural delight. Dance and stay uptight, it's supernatural delight. One would think that a song as joyous as Dancing in the Moonlight would have been conceived from a red-letter day of happiness. But the real-life events that inspired songwriter Sherman Kelly to compose this magical piece of Bottle Lightning are actually filled with unspeakable terror. Back in 1969, musician Sherman Kelly was running a nightclub with some business partners in the Virgin Islands. So on one evening, Sherman and his then-girlfriend Adrienne joined a group of friends and jumped aboard a 65-foot scooter for a little evening cruise across a beautiful stretch of ocean from the Virgin Islands to St. Croix. The water was extremely choppy that evening, and the motion of the water made the couple seasick, especially Sherman, who was prone to seasickness as it was. Made him a little reluctant to go on the trip in the first place, knowing that. When they reached the harbor of their destination in St. Croix, the passengers took a dinghy to shore to find a place to grab some dinner. Sherman was so nauseated and out of sorts from the voyage to St. Croix, he thought some food and water would make him feel better. When they finished the meal, though, Sherman and Adrienne walked with their friends back to the dinghy for the return trip to the Virgin Islands, but they were worried about getting sick again, especially having just ate, and they, elected to stay in St. Croix. Sherman and Adrienne decided to find a hotel in St. Croix to spend the night and then go back to the Virgin Islands the very next morning. So they began the search to find a hotel. They're walking along, and then Sherman realized that he was so disoriented from the motion sickness, he'd actually left his wallet on the yacht. Neither he nor Adrienne had a credit or cash to pay for a hotel. The couple pleaded with the front desk manager at the closest Fleabag hotel that they could find, explaining their predicament. But the manager was completely unmoved. He told Sherman that he would give them a room if he could borrow his girlfriend for the night. Real class act, that guy. They begged two other nearby hotels to give him a room as well, but they were denied. With no place to lodge, Adrienne suggested that they camp out on the beach. After all, it was a gorgeous moonlit night, and the beach was completely empty. So Sherman and Adrienne found a comfortable spot by a palm tree to lie down, and they fell asleep. The next thing that Sherman remembers, he was being awakened by a sharp blow to his skull, followed by repeated punches and kicks from 5 assailants who had sneaked up on them and viciously started to attack them. So while 3 of the assailants severely beat Sherman into unconsciousness, the leader of the gang put a towel over Adrienne's head and brutally violated her. The other gang members were waiting for their turn when suddenly Adrian remembers hearing a scream that she said sounded like a deranged animal. It was Sherman. Miraculously, he regained consciousness and desperately fought back on the attackers, making enough noise to frighten him off into the darkness. They took off. Sherman's frantic counteroffensive had actually saved their lives for the moment. Now it was up to a battered Adrian to conjure the wherewithal to get her gravely injured boyfriend to a hospital. She herself was injured. Adrian managed to locate a hospital. It was Sherman drifting in and out of consciousness and admitted him into emergency care there. The next thing that Sherman recalls, he woke up in a hospital bed in St. Croix, overhearing a group of doctors prognosticate that he wasn't going to make it. Gradually, Sherman's condition improved, though. And when he was finally released to go back home, the road to recovery from there, it was a slow and long process. His face, was badly fractured from the beating he took in St. Croix. And he had to go through several reconstructive surgeries to repair his countenance. So during his convalescence, Sherman wasn't in any kind of shape to join a band. But, he kept writing music. But instead of writing bitter songs of anger and despair and depression from the nightmare that he experienced at St. Croix, Sherman's spirit was reborn with an appreciation for surviving the vicious attack that nearly killed him. He had gratitude. He envisioned an alternate reality, a dream of a peaceful and joyful celebration of life. Sherman's burst of appreciation compelled him to sit at his piano and compose a song that would be a magnetic celebration of life. He called it Dancing in the Moonlight. Everybody was dancing in the moonlight. Everybody. Sherman shared Dancing in the Moonlight to his friends, including fellow musicians, and everybody loved it. How could you not? What a beautiful, joyous song to come from his survival from this horrible thing. Now, as we continue to break down this song, I do want to mention our sponsor. I continue to enjoy more overall energy and better execution of my busy schedule with the help of Bubs Naturals. It's been helping me do 6 episodes a week. It all starts with the Bubs Naturals collagen and MCT oil powder that is backed by scientific research and discovery that gave me the confidence to try the product in the first place. And now I feel it actually working. My daily regimen begins with adding the Bubs Natural Collagen Powder to my morning beverage. It's ideal for all you coffee drinkers out there to use the Bubs Naturals Collagen as a coffee creamer. But it's easy to add to a smoothie, glass of juice or water as well. That's what I do. Collagen is the most abundant structural protein in the human body, making up over 1/3 of the body's protein content. Humans are perfectly capable of producing collagen, but age and diet slow the body's ability to create that vital protein. That's why it's so important. Bubs Naturals gives you proven protein collagen to add to your diet that will promote health and vitality and improve recovery. Click on the Bubs Naturals link in the description below and use a promo code that gives the Professor of Rock community a 20% discount at checkout. Everybody dancing in the moonlight. It took years for Dancing in the Moonlight to get exposure, to an audience, to become an international hit. Actually, the first act to record Dancing in the Moonlight was Sherman's own band Boffalongo. It was a rock ensemble that included Sherman's brother Wells Kelly on drums. There was also Larry Hoppin, who would later become the lead guitarist and co-lead singer for the group in Orleans. The lead vocal on the original version of Dancing in the Moonlight by Boffalongo, that was actually performed by Sherman Kelly himself. So named after a Levon Helms song of the same name, King Harvest formed in 1969 in New York. They had a nucleus of Doc Robinson on vocals and bass. There was Ron Altbach on keyboard. Ed Talia played lead guitar, and Rod Novick, he blew the sax. The quartet were primarily a covers band in those days, playing songs by Sly and the Family Stone and Jimi Hendrix in the band. But one by one, the members of King Harvest actually migrated to Paris, France. They did this in 1970, where they reformed as King Harvest, sometimes performing under the pseudonym E. Rodney Jones and the Prairie Dogs. In Paris, they actually won a contest, talent contest, and they were awarded 10,000 francs. The group expanded to an 8-piece with 3 keyboardists, One of the keyboardists was actually Sherman Kelly, who played with Doc Robinson in Boffalongo. And Sherman's brother, Wells, another Boffalongo refugee, also played in King Harvest at that time. It was Wells Kelly who actually had the idea to revisit Dancing in the Moonlight and record a new King Harvest version of that song. Now, going back to Boffalongo's original recording, that was a mild regional hit in the Northeast, and Wells always believed that the song could be much, much bigger if given the right opportunity. Now, I should note that in 1970, a band named High Broom, they were the second act to record Dancing in the Moonlight. However, both the Boffalongo and High Broom renditions, they failed to break nationally. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight. I'll link to both of them below, and you should listen to them all because you'll understand why the King Harvest version fared so much better. More on that in a second. King Harvest's version of Dancing in the Moonlight was much more scaled back than Boffalongo's jazzy original, not nearly as guitar-driven as the High Broom variation. Doc Robinson replaced Sherman Kelly on lead vocals, which didn't bother Sherman because he felt that Doc had a much stronger voice than he did.
They don't bark and they don't bite, they keep things loose. They don't bark and they don't bite, they keep things loose.
Doc also invented a new instrument for the intro on the recording of Dancing in the Moonlight. Get this. The band tried maracas, and they also tried a tambourine for the track's instrumental opening, but neither produced that kind of cool, laid-back sound that they heard in their heads. And then Doc found a heavy, bristled toilet brush in the studio, and he started to play around with it, just goofing around. To the band's astonishment, though, the brush worked perfectly, and they decided to layer the brushing strokes underneath the keyboard on the intro to help establish the melody of the song. In the liner notes, you will only see Doc Robinson's name as performing vocals and bass, not a toilet brush. That would have been funny, though. King Harvest's Dancing in the Moonlight languished in France, where it was first released, and King Harvest temporarily disbanded. But just like Sherman Kelly's rejuvenated spirit that inspired the composition in the first place, the single generated renewed interest on radio stations starting in upstate New York, southern Canada as well. Encouraged by this new action, King Harvest reformed with Sherman Kelly officially joining the group. 1973, that was the year for Dancing in the Moonlight to make its glorious declaration of joy and celebration for the world to enjoy, and ever since we have.
Everybody was dancing in the moonlight.
Dancing in the Moonlight by King Harvest went to number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 5 in Canada. It would have undoubtedly moved higher on the chart, maybe even number 1, but the band's record label Perception, they had very little muscle to, compete with the majors to procure a more airplay or even retail distribution. Despite the top 15 success of the single, the Dancing in the Moonlight album, it failed to break the top 100 on the Billboard album chart, and the record failed to deliver any follow-up hits. The single that came after Dancing in the Moonlight was A Little Bit Like Magic, is what it was called. It stalled at a disappointing number 91 on the Billboard Hot 100, though.
Well, it's a little bit like magic. Take a look.
Members began to oscillate, and King Harvest eventually floundered. Even Sherman Kelly decided to leave the band after just one round of touring. He just wasn't cut out for life on the road. The original 4 members then hooked up with LA-based Buffalo Rock and Roll Hall of Fame drummer Richie Pitinick in 1974. With support from Carl Wilson and Mike Love from the Beach Boys, the core foursome signed with A&M Records and recorded another album simply titled King Harvest. The LP was released in 75, and the lone single Hickory just didn't catch on. It failed to chart at all.
Hickory's got a guy she lives for. He drives a taxi.
Sadly, Doc Robinson, the singer and bassist, he died of a massive heart attack in 2012. Doc had heart issues for years, but after his death, it was learned that the pacemaker that he had malfunctioned. Properly working pacemaker could have saved Doc's life. Now, the 3 surviving founding members of King Harvest released the album New Friends back in 2015, featuring the single Our Old Songs.
These are our old songs.
Dancing in the Moonlight has been reinterpreted by the likes of Johnny Rivers and Liza Minnelli. My Morning Jacket did it, Yonder Mountain String Band, and Orleans. In 2000, Dancing in the Moonlight became a hit all over again when the English band Top Loader released their version of the song. It's a great version. Top Loader's cover cracked the top 10 singles chart in many countries around the world. It had a number 7 showing in the UK and Ireland, and it actually has like 140-something million views on YouTube, and it keeps growing. Dancing in the Moonlight was featured in the video game Guardians of the Galaxy, The Telltale Signs in 2017, and it's the opening song for the second episode. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll help.
The track has been placed in so many films and TV shows. There's The Blacklist, Better Call Saul, The Umbrella Academy, just to name a few from recent years.
Dancing in the moonlight.
There's actually a mashup of Dancing in the Moonlight and Foster the People's Pumped Up Kicks, which has received a ton of action on TikTok. So comparing the different versions, the reason that I believe the King Harvest version trumps the first two are really threefold. One, that toilet brush percussion really did make a difference as far as the opening is concerned. It was an out-of-the-box, everything but the kitchen sink type thinking that brought the perfect sound in for this song. It was reminiscent of what the Funk Brothers and Holland Dozier Holland did at Hitsville, USA back in the early days of Motown. You know, they used a broken tambourine on Reach Out, I'll Be There to get that cool sound, and they used snow chains on Nowhere to Run, Martha and the Vandellas. Very cool. Secondly, having that smooth 70s keyboard open the song instead of guitar was another really just great choice. But the thing that really put it eons ahead of any other version was the cool and calm swagger of Joyful Explosion that emanated from the singer Doc Robinson. I mean, it's untouchable.
They don't bite, they keep things loose, they keep things alive.
This is a song, as much as any song, takes me back to the late 70s when I was only like 4 years old. I mean, it had to be one of the first songs that I remember hearing. It's amazing that after decades of experience living in this world, I can still remember the sights and the sounds of my first glimpses of awareness, down to the scent and the visuals of a time when it seemed like all was right in the world, in my world. This record was played from my dad's groovy turntable and his Pioneer sound system, his receiver, Pioneer receiver, a glistening silver that was in the basement of our first home. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was encased in a hickory wood cabinet above a brick arch, kind of by where we had our furnace. We had a medium-sized TV sitting on top of a small end table there. I remember my parents would watch Taxi and Battlestar Galactica and Charlie's Angel, that light just gleaming as I was sleeping in the next room. Off to the side, there was a magazine rack that was spoiling over with Better Homes and Gardens and People magazine and Cream and Sports Illustrated for my dad. My dad would play music on that turntable and pick up my sister and me and get us to dance along with him. There are certain songs that are just embedded upon my soul because of that period of time when I was chock full of wonder and only just experiencing the sights and the sounds of this planet, taking it all in like a little sponge. I'm talking about first-time memories of existence. Songs like Moonlight Feels Right by Starbuck, Brandy You're a Fine Girl by Looking Glass.
Feels right.
They say, Brandy, you're a fine girl.
Only the Good Die Young by Billy Joel, Night Fever by the Bee Gees.
Done. Only the good die young.
There was a lot of Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand and And there was even some Led Zeppelin in there. And of course, Dancing in the Moonlight by King Harvest, among so many others. These songs were the great awakening for me to the joy and the potency of music and how it could just envelop you like a warm blanket. I was completely entranced by the colors of the 70s, from the album covers to the brown shag carpet, to the peace of mind that my father's smile brought to me as life seemed to be there for the taking. Music was the prime instigator, I'm telling you. The story of Sherman Kelly's paean is ultimately a heartwarming testament to the redemptive power of music. I've said it many times, a 3-minute pop song can change the world and literally save lives. Sherman Kelly has been remarkably transparent about the horror that he and Adrian suffered through in 1969 on that beach in St. Croix. Kelly and Adrian were believed to be amongst the first victims of the infamous Fountain Valley Gang, who murdered like 8 or more tourists in 1972. The grisly crimes of the Fountain Valley Gang frightened tourists away from St. Croix for many, many years. We're not sure what happened with Adrian and the strong, resolute girlfriend that shook off her own terror to get Sherman Kelly to a hospital to save his life. Sherman rightfully did not reveal any other details about Adrian, leaving it for her to share if she so chooses. Just as Sherman did with his music, we hope that Adrian was able to find a catharsis of peace, overcoming unthinkable adversity. The incredible story of Sherman and Adrian is an amazing example of the universal force of the human spirit. The same spirit that created the music that inspires us, that binds us together. It's one of those great, inexplicable wonders. I believe Sherman Kelly, he put it best. It's such a fine and natural sight. Leave us a comment about King Harvest and this Bottle Lightning feel-good 70s classic. When I heard the story, it made the song so much richer than it already was, and it was already rich in my mind. What do you remember about Dancing in the Moonlight? Do you remember the first songs that you heard, first visuals that went along with those songs when you were just your first memories? Let us know in the comments below. If you dig this content, make sure that you subscribe below so you never miss out on our videos. We would love to have you as part of this community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.